Hey y'all, Sakaya EX voice and low-res hand reveal here. Today I'm going to show you how and why I beat Bright Memory Infinite with only one hand. Now, before we get into what you're actually here to see, we gotta get some context. Now, believe it or not, I bought this game with a challenge in mind. It just wasn't this one. If you look carefully on the store page for this game on Steam, you'll see a few things. Obviously, the game's for sale, duh, along with its DLC, we'll get to that later, but if you're really observant, you'll scroll down and find the minimum and recommended settings that the game is supposed to run at. Minimum is generally the specs that will give you a playable experience, while obviously the recommended ones are generally the lowest ones the game will look good at. To put a long story short, my graphics card doesn't meet the minimum specs, so just playing it was supposed to be the challenge. Now, it says GTX 960, which I have, but I'm assuming that little 4G in brackets next to it refers to the VRAM, of which I only have 2 gig. Surely you can see the issue here. Not only that, but I'm not using another computer or like dedicated capture card or anything to get the game recordings, so we're a little understaffed in the graphics department, to say the least. For those of you who aren't familiar with the funny letters and numbers of NVIDIA graphics cards, owning a GTX 960 in 2022 is approximately the graphics card equivalent of putting a sandwich in the VCR, or for those of you born after 2000, putting a slice of bologna in the DVD player, or for those of you born after 2005, putting a cheese stick in the USB port. Only 90s kids will remember that first one, and expecting to watch a documentary about food. Further inspection of the store page uncovers mentions of a mysterious ray tracing. I'm not sure who Ray is, and I certainly don't know who or what he's tracing, but it looks like I need a 3060 if I want to see him normally, or a 3080 if I want to see him while he's high. Sorry, Ray. Maybe next time. To further my graphical woes, this game also gives me a graphics driver warning on launch, so I'm sure that's a great sign. But, to my surprise, the game actually ran great and was perfectly playable. If I didn't have to capture the footage, it actually looked pretty good, and it looked really good even if I did have to capture the footage, but if I tried to get any footage at an even mildly watchable quality, it made my recordings into a PowerPoint slideshow. So I cranked the rendering down to 50% and limited my frame rate to 30 FPS, and that worked like a charm. So instead of a nice game and a horrible recording, I just got both of them to look awful and kind of called it a day. Other than the poor visibility at times and the yearning for a better graphics card, this wasn't a big enough pain to satisfy my insatiable desire to inconvenience myself, so I also just didn't use my left hand. Now, taking a final look over the store page, we can see there's some DLC and a soundtrack for sale. I, being a fool, just got it all together because I wanted the soundtrack, hoped some of the weapon skins would be cool, and was unironically curious about what the wallpapers would be. Not sure why, as it doesn't exactly take much thought to realize that they're just super high-res images of the main character and the various DLC outfits, but I guess my brain wasn't exactly working great that day, so whatever. The DLC outfits don't really do much in-game other than making you close your door and make sure no one's standing behind you during the cutscenes. They also give you a more clear look at your arms and legs so you can feel more like the beautiful young woman you always wanted to be.
Am I a pretty girl?
Oh, well, you're beautiful.
So, the outfits in this game range from Fallout 4 mods to, well, Fallout 4 mods. But, since we've got all these outfits, we'll have to pick one that's thematically appropriate to playing the game one-handed. Now, which one of these outfits do you think is the most appropriate for one-handed gameplay? Everyone knows a really good pair of skinny jeans takes both hands to put on, so that outfit's out. Working out with only one hand is how you get a strength imbalance, so crop top and workout shorts also can't be it. Next one is presumably a cheerleader outfit. And cheerleading seems like it takes both hands, so that's out too. Neither I nor anyone I know has a New Year's tradition of tying a hand behind their back, so the New Year's outfit's out. And neither I nor anybody I know has a New Year's tradition of tying a hand behind their back, but in blue, so the blue version can't work either. Cat Ears one is out too, since cats can't even play video games with both hands, much less one. And that leaves us with two choices. The default outfit, which has one hand encased in a big silver power gauntlet and the other bare, or the perfectly symmetrical bikini outfit that's in this game, because of course it is. Obviously, the bikini outfit's the one to use, because the one picture I found when I googled water polo has someone holding a ball in one hand. No other reason. Well, now that we're in the mood and all ready to go, let's stop wasting time and actually get into the game. So we start out with a cutscene of our protagonist chilling in her apartment and getting called into work. Relatable. She suits up, or rather down in this case, and heads to an airbase that looks like the inside of a shipping container, where we learn about some of our friends and enemies that we'll be seeing on this trip. Or at least the ones Director Chen knows about and are relevant enough to the story to have a name. Not that there's really much of a story that can be told in the game this short, but there's still kind of enough to keep you interested and engaged with everything that's going on, or at least explain sort of why you're doing any of it. Shelia attempts to drive in sandals and crashes the SRO's fancy, expensive warp drive jet, using up not only half of the SRO's annual budget, but also half of this game's QuickTime events. Fun fact, you can actually fail these QTEs, but only if you really aren't paying attention, or if, like me, you really honestly had to take a few seconds to remember what button you need to press.
3, 2, 1, activate.
After this suggestive swimming cutscene, Shelia beats up some guys, and we finally get more control than just pushing some buttons while Shelia crashes a plane. Trust me, this would have been a lot easier if it was all QTEs. While the game teaches me controls for a third time, I'll instead teach you how I did this in one hand. Since I have a fancy mouse where I can rebind the buttons on it, I essentially just rebound them to everything that I thought I would need. The little thumb paddle on the side switches from my combat-oriented profile to my parkour one when I hold it down, and generally the bigger, easier to access buttons like right-click, scroll wheel, and thumb buttons are bound to things like movement, aiming, parrying, and attacks, while the less accessible buttons are bound to things like reloading, menu, and more situational powers. I did use some macros for dodging, so if you think that's cheating, feel free to cry about it in the comments. However, if you just want to make sure I didn't use my other hand, I've included a camera that shows both my hands as I'm playing, so you can see what's going on. In this tutorial section, we're introduced to unforgettable enemies such as cool-looking soldier guy with rifle, cool-looking soldier guy with shotgun, and extra-large soldier guy, who comes with a tutorial event I forgot to make a convenient key binding setup for, and can shoot missiles when he punches. Okay. Now that we've spent some time with our first gun, it feels comfortable enough to show us its wild side. It's an alternate fire mode where it shoots explosive homing rounds. Bright Memory Infinite has about as many unique firearms as the Not Friends music video, and each of them has an alternate fire mode that uses special ammo. Thankfully, these fire modes are generally more interesting than firing both the bullet and the casing. Next, we get to the parkour section. I mean, it's certainly no Ghost Runner. but it's perfectly serviceable as far as first-person parkour goes. As you can see, I struggled a bit with it, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. A nearby airplane gets a little too hot and bothered with the suggestive camera angle of the next cutscene, and we get to another parkour section where we get introduced to the grappling hook and also electrified water that kills you instantly if you fall in. Normally not bad, but certainly more annoying when all the parkour controls are put in places they probably shouldn't be. Our reward for this, however, is the shotgun. This is my favorite weapon in the game and by far the most useful in most situations. It's powerful, it doesn't need good aim, stuns most enemies with a couple shots, and makes a great addition to any percussion section. What's really special though is the alt fire called shrapnel bombs, which sprays a cone of fire that does a ton of damage, inflicts more burn damage over time, and stuns any enemy in the game on any difficulty. Just in case you didn't catch that the first time, it stuns any enemy in the game on any difficulty. Unless it's a boss in an attack animation that's uninterruptible, you can stun anything, including bosses. So you can stun lock bosses. This is going to be important later, so we're going to stick that in our proverbial back pocket, since literal back pockets aren't exactly something we have with this outfit. Since we just got a new friend, we also get to meet a new enemy, the Ancient Soldiers. These big boys got Expelliarmused into existence by some black hole EMP supernatural time manipulation shenanigans or whatever, and we had to fight them for some reason that may or may not become clearer later on. Spoiler, it doesn't. Director Chen doesn't seem all that surprised.
That's a strange phenomenon. I'll let the others know.
So we just keep on going to another platforming section with this game's only jump scare.
Don't care. Don't care. Still don't care. I don't care.
The true horror in this part, however, is the realization that these big guys have evolved enough to develop tool use and could one day be intelligent enough to not bring a stick or their fists to a gunfight. After this, I stopped to upgrade my abilities using the upgrade points you get by defeating bigger enemies and finding relics and reliquaries hidden around the map. Whoever carefully put all these priceless artifacts in boxes is going to be real mad when they find out I stapled them to my shotgun to make the fire rounds do more damage. Anyways, all I upgraded this round was the gun alt fires and the ranged sword slash, since those are by far the most useful, and most of the powers were way more trouble to use with one hand than they're worth. Somehow I managed to spend more reliquaries than I had, putting myself into crippling green statue depth the next 10 minutes. Luckily, the next guys were kind enough to lend me their shiny blue circles, a debt which I repaid by gifting them the contents of a bunch of shotgun rounds.
Because I have in credit card debt. When they call, I tell them.
Looking at the ammo stock in the next room and the obvious open area past it, I'm sure you can tell where the first boss is going to be. What you can't tell is what he looks like in the cutscene or really any part of what's going on. Despite her inability to read this guy's name from the clearly displayed subtitles, Shelia is perfectly capable of carrying a conversation with the first boss. The recording got pretty choppy here, and I think the game did too, but it wasn't quite as bad in-game. I think it's the fire effects, honestly, and pretty much all the bosses have them, so get used to it. This guy's really not that tough, though, especially on easy difficulty. Did I mention I'm playing on easy? Also, did I mention that parrying refills your magazine for free? Anyways, just parry most of the attacks, dodge when he yells, and keep getting him with a shotgun. I love that he says the same lines no matter what's going on, so he'll keep taunting you even if he's getting absolutely smacked around.
Come on! You're wide open. Bullets in the light are meaningless.
Time's up, that's all!
After you win, you can refill all the ammo that you didn't use, and get ready for another movement sequence. I didn't even deal with the guys in the way since I'm playing on easy, so they can't really hurt me, and running and gunning isn't exactly easy when you're playing one-handed. What can hurt me are these parkour segments, and past them we get to this game's obligatory stealth section.
Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.
More EMP shenanigans somehow manage to disable our guns. Huh?
You won't be able to use your exo unit or weapons.
What do I do?
Look around for something to protect yourself with.
So we have to use a cleaver that someone conveniently left in a box outside. What's even more perplexing, however, is that the enemy not only has functional guns in this area, but full-on aircraft. Not sure how an EMP can disable a gun while leaving other similar guns and also things that use highly complicated electronic systems like aircraft completely functional, but whatever. I guess these guys really are more technologically advanced.
General Lin?
The top dog at SAI. They say that tech-wise, even we here at SRO can't hold a candle to his guys.
Then again, they have body armor that can't stand up to a kitchen knife, so who knows. As much as I didn't really like this section, it does feature the most relatable characters in the entire game.
Where's the next guy coming anyway?
Wonder if I'll get a bonus for catching.
Ugh, so sleepy. I'm gonna go take a nap. I'm so sleepy. How much longer do I have to wait?
When's this rain gonna stop?
Got so cold all of a sudden. I'm seriously tired. How much longer do I have to wait?
Oh, yes, Daddy.
They're also completely oblivious, with the exception of this one guy who saw me through a solid rock. Not sure how that one worked. Getting through the stealth section, another EMP somehow turns all our tech back on. At this point, I'm not even going to question it. I'm just happy to be able to use a shotgun again. The usual new friends, new enemies thing happens again, and we get to test out our new handgun on this big mace guy and some people with shields. And by test out the handgun, I mean use the shotgun. The handgun is actually pretty good though. The normal fire mode is full auto bouncing rounds, and the alt fire is pretty much an incendiary rocket launcher. Note that, like the shotgun, this also does a ton of damage and stuns anything, but it does so from a longer range. It's a little harder to hit with since the rockets have travel time, but it pretty much does the same thing. Pretty soon after, you get the final weapon, which is a fairly standard sniper rifle with delayed explosive sticky alt fire rounds. Certainly nothing groundbreaking, but it can be fun to use and it does solid damage.
Hey yo, we gonna make you feel something special.
So after having a horrible customer service experience in a burning restaurant, Shelia cheats at Battleship by jumping to look over the other player's board and sinking their patrol boat, and then goes into the world's most resilient thin wooden building. Some comical pig ragdoll physics later, and we happen upon the big mace guy again, but with lightning axes this time, and a bunch of the annoying ancient soldier archers. The fact that this fight is actually kind of difficult is excellent foreshadowing, but we'll leave that for later. You'll see why. At this point, I'm pretty much done upgrading all my weapons and the light blade slash, so I mean if I was smart, I wouldn't have wasted any time picking up relics after this, but yeah, oops. So finally we got to the second boss. In his first phase, the Giant King is comically easy to parry, which basically means free ammo and absolutely no threat. The biggest challenge of this part by far is seeing anything while you take a shower and blinding sparks from using the shotgun point blank. In the second phase, the Giant King loses his mace in favor of throwing rocks and lava. Again, many of his melee attacks are pretty easy to parry, so you can use the same idea. If you bully him too much though, he cries to all his friends and they come try and take your lunch money. So because of this, and the fact that some of his melee attacks come with a lava AoE, you've got to bring a few special friends of your own if you want to win. Remember what I said about the shotgun and handgun specials staggering anything? Yeah, that includes this guy, even if he is the size of a truck. One shotgun special will stun him long enough for you to switch to regular rounds, hit him a few more times, and switch back in time to stun him again before he can do anything. Once your mag runs out, you can bait a parry or just run away, reload, and repeat. When his friends come though, it's honestly easier to just run away and hit him with the handgun specials until his health bar hits 0. This strategy can pretty much carry you through the whole fight on easy or even normal if you have enough special ammo, but even on the hardest difficulty, 10 handgun specials will take out about a fifth of his health in the second phase, and there's literally nothing he can do but sit there and take it. Once you beat this, Shelia shows off the stealth suit that's only available on the 50% rendering setting, and we finally get a glimpse of General Lin. And with a new enemy comes a new friend. Wake the helicopter decides to give us some actual support this time by delivering our rocket launcher equipped Honda Civic into the roof of some nearby buildings.
You're good! You're good! You're good! And stop! Don't worry, Captain, we'll buff out those scratches.
And dropping it off in the Yakuza 0 reference up ahead. And of course we have to fight through a bunch of people to get to it. Surprisingly, the driving doesn't feel awful, even with a mouse. We do get pursued by enemy tanks, which are conveniently in the only direction that our vehicle has a weapon pointed. That being said, the turret does turn with the steering wheel, and that's a really nice touch, so I'm willing to let this one slide. I didn't manage to flip the car this time, like I did on my first playthrough, but I did have a few crashes just due to difficulties with driving with a mouse. I know that sounds like a cope, but if you really think I'm bad at driving in video games, try beating my record on Mindbender in grip combat racing. Anyways, this driving section is pretty fun, but more importantly, it lets you take sweet, sweet revenge if any of the pigs manage to hit you during that earlier section. Or if you're just sadistic, you can hit them anyways. Shelia puts another massive dent in the SRO's budget with the loss of the assault vehicle.
Oh no! The road!
Shelia, get out of there now!
Oh my God, Peter, back it up!
Oh, really, Lois? I thought I might drive forward. I thought that might be a fun thing to do.
And we get to play that aeroplane scene from the trailer. Shelia abandons yet another vehicle and somehow survives falling directly through a tree, but there's no time to think about that because we gotta fight some statues. Okay. Really, these guys are pretty easy to parry, so it's not that big of a deal. From here on out, it's just more platforming and fighting, mostly ancient soldiers. You know, the black hole and the ancient soldiers and stuff are pretty wild, but really the biggest anomaly in this story is the vehicle that was crashed by someone other than Shelia. More platforming and soldiers, and we get to the world's most obvious final boss arena. Hey, you think maybe this is a boss arena? Jeez, last time I saw something this sus was when I turned the signature logo sideways. First, we gotta fight a bunch of archers and stuff, though, and one of those lightning axe guys again. Remember how I said this was bad before? Yeah, it's worse here, mostly because there's just more of the archers. Pro tip for this fight, don't try and run past them to get more space to fight. The spawn trigger for the next set of enemies is a little bit behind these ones, and you trigger it by going there, not by killing all the enemies. So running past is a great way to see more loading screen tips and not much else.
Uh-oh. Stinky.
Get through them, and you get to fight the funny man again right where he said he would be. This time he has an opening monologue about vaguely being evil, maybe, or something, and it's pretty much just the first boss fight again, in a slightly different arena. Still fun the second time, though. Due to the rendering, I actually lost him for a few seconds in this fight, not because he's dodgy or hard to follow, but because I blasted him into a corner so hard I seriously couldn't see him. Finish him off again, and he combines with all the other bosses and then some to make the final boss. This fight is actually pretty difficult, especially on the harder difficulties. A lot of the attacks are parryable, but not all of them, and some have AoEs, so parrying is pretty situational. His Taco Bell attack is pretty easy to dodge, but the lightning axe does a lot of damage over a huge area, and the sword swing can be pretty dangerous too. The real danger, however, is the bird. The snake isn't so bad because it comes straight at you and isn't that hard to dodge, but the bird comes from beside or behind you, is really hard to hit, and has a ranged attack that does absurd damage and is really hard to dodge. If the bird comes out, kill it immediately, no questions asked, or you will most likely die. The AR's homing explosive rounds are generally the best for this, since the bird is kind of annoying to hit, but nothing beats the satisfaction of blasting that abhorrent little feathered rat out of the sky with incendiary rockets from the handgun. Now this seems like the end of the game, right? And guess who we haven't heard from in a while? That's right, Wake. Oh, and General Lin too, I guess. He comes back here. He's been a lot less relevant than I expected to this story. He comes in and shoots you with a gun in a cutscene, which by video game rules means it actually hurts, and then essentially just says what the other guy said. Wake makes his appearance and apparently has had a rocket pod this whole time.
Die, Lynn!
One QTE and some time manipulation stuff later, and you wake up and watch the credits, wondering why Wake didn't use the rocket pod at literally any other time in the story. As it turns out, yes, you can beat Bright Memory Infinite using only one hand, and with half the required VRAM on the minimum spec graphics card. As much as I joke about this game, I really did enjoy playing it a lot, even the stealth section, and I really do recommend it. It's got some neat mechanics, the gameplay feels great, it's well polished, and the visuals are stunning, even on a bit of a questionable setup like mine, as long as I'm not recording. Anyways, this video took a really long time to make, mostly because I suck at editing and spend more time laughing at my own jokes than making them, but also because I filmed it in like February and didn't touch the footage until a couple weeks ago. If I'm honest, there were some parts of both the filming and the editing that were really frustrating, but I had a lot of fun doing it and watching it all come together. Thanks a lot for making it to the end of this video. I know it's pretty different from my usual content, so I hope it's still okay. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash that like, comment, and subscribe, or whatever the cool kids are doing these days to interact with YouTube videos. I've got a few more video ideas that I want to work on sometime, including another gameplay video on Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, and some short, silly edits like my last video. No, not that one, it doesn't count, my last good video. Please leave a comment to let me know what you'd like to see on the channel in the future, or if you have any constructive criticism, if you need me to explain a joke, or if you just want to say something funny, then that's fine too. Also, if you recognize my voice or hands or setup or anything, please forget everything you saw in this video for obvious reasons, but also so you watch it again. Thanks again for watching. I've been Sakaya EX, and I'll see you next time. Probably.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Let's pump it up!